There you go.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online. And today we go out to the East Coast of the USA to join the lovely Carla Rose. So Carla, I know from the Tony Robbins environment. She's a phenomenal coach. She's a clinical therapist. She's very, very busy right now, helping people out with their lockdown worries and stuff like that. And I'm delighted just to welcome her to the show today. So welcome, Carla. And we're going to start with the question that I ask of everyone when we start, which is, if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
So thank you for having me on. It's good to see you. It's been a little while since we've seen each other face to face, but it's always good to see what you're doing in the world, and we're on different continents, so it's really quite fascinating to see how the world is getting along. So my wisdom, that's an interesting question, but I would say that your mindset, whatever it is that you're sort of thinking about and you're focusing on is where you take yourself every day. And I would say that you want to be very careful as to what your thoughts are, and then what the meaning is that you give to your thoughts. I come from a perspective of psychology, obviously, and many years of personal growth and development, but I've been a clinical therapist, as you say, for 23 years. And right now, in this time of uncertainty around the world, and with everyone's health and financial situation, I think really being careful about the thoughts that we have and what meaning we apply to them.
Okay. So, how can we, I mean, a lot of people right now might be feeling quite lonely or, perhaps experiencing a bit of a downward spiral. What's one of the first things that you would say to them to try and unlock that and get them out of it?
Yeah, so again, it comes back to your mindset, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think this is a time of great uncertainty, and many people are alone. And unfortunately, the social distancing that we're being told, and the lockdowns and things of that nature. So there is a very important need for all of us to connect. I mean, we're a social group as humans, right? And so if we can't connect by of physical touch, then certainly some kind of a technology, which is wonderful that we have that, the ability to call someone, the ability to do a Zoom call, or to be able to do some kind of technological connection. And I also think it's important, the isolation, if you will, that is imposed, to check in with our connection to ourselves, because what happens is we start to think about what's not happening. And then we start to remember that there was a time when we were out and we were about, and and so we don't want to go there. We want to go to a place where we have positive self-care as well. So again, it comes back to, being connected, but connected to your thoughts and your feelings, so that you can find a way to connect externally and internally.
And do you have any advice for someone to really go within? Because there'll be a few people out there that are not really familiar with this concept yet. So how would you start that journey?
Yeah, and so, it depends on where you're from and what your beliefs are, but I think, some sort of meditative practice, some sort of quieting of, and as I said, you have to be careful about the meanings that you give to your thoughts, but you want to quiet your thoughts. You want to find a way to really get in touch with your physical self, so that you understand what you're feeling inside your body. So you want to get out of your head and into your heart, if you will. And one of the ways to do that is to actually put your hands on your heart and to breathe into your heart. And whether or not you've ever done some sort of a spiritual or a meditative practice, it's a wonderful way to get centered. And the way to do that is to take some relaxation breaths. So I actually give this to my clients that are having great anxiety, and it works very well. So if you want to, I'll give you the
Yeah,
actual practice.
let's do it.
So you would take 3 breaths in through your nose and hold them for about 30 seconds, and not too long. And then let them out through your mouth, but do it twice as long as the time that you inhaled the breath. So it would look something like this. And do that again. Hold, and then exhale twice as long. You don't want to do it too many times because you could get a little lightheaded. So, but you want to do that a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times. And with your hands on your heart might be a good way to do that. And with your eyes closed or your eyes open, it really wouldn't matter, but it would be important to just focus on your breathing.
Mm.
And then at some point, your internal structures will start to quiet down.
Mm.
And even people that are like myself, very, type A type personalities where they're always on the go and they're always doing, it's important to be in that presence and in a being state. And
Mm.
then from that space, you can get in touch with what's coming up for you. But
Okay.
it's at a different, it's sort of I know that, sort of technically, but it's an alpha wave that changes in your brain.
Mm.
And when you sort of calm yourself, there's different chemicals in your brain that start to work that help you to calm down.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you how exactly does that work, and why is it important for our well-being? Because I'm certainly having that conversation with a lot of friends of mine at the moment who probably never meditated, don't really know how to do it, are finding it hard because they've never
Yes,
given themselves that
it
much.
is hard. It's hard because, as I said, your thoughts are very important, right? And we're a thinking world. I mean, this is the human condition. We think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who said it, but we think, therefore we are, right? But the truth is that we feel. And if we're in our head all the time, as one of our mentors says, Tony, that if we're in our head, we're dead, right? Because if we get so caught up in what our thoughts are, then we go off into a lot of different places. And what I think is this whole process of meditation or relaxation, if you will, if you don't like the meditation sort of direction, is to quiet the noise.
Mm.
And the noise is not only coming from the external world, but it's also coming from your own mind. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're isolated because you don't have a choice, because you're asked to shelter in place or you're on a lockdown, and throughout the world, it's very different. I mean, I know that we have a shelter in place in New York City. However, there are a lot of people out and about. So, shelter in place means different things to different people.
Mm.
But there are a lot of people that before this even happened are very isolated. Maybe they're living on their own and they don't have family close to them.
Mm.
And so what tends to happen is they find ways to sort of disconnect from the thoughts. And one of the ways that people do it is by the television or, which I don't agree with. I don't think that's a good thing to do. Or
Mm.
technology, which now has become our connection to the world, but a necessary one in this time of distancing. Okay.
Mm.
So this meditation or this relaxation allows you to sort of get out of your head
Yeah.
and feel where in your body you're uncomfortable,
Mm.
and pay attention to that because it will give you a clue as to what areas you can change.
Mm.
And then the practice of changing your state is what I'm talking about, and changing your state by doing something very deliberate. So you're actually telling yourself to relax, right?
Yeah.
And then you're doing something by the breathing that helps you to relax. Now,
Mm.
there are a lot of people, Shay, that will tell you that I can't relax, I can't meditate.
Yeah,
You know?
I know those people.
And you know what? They're right because they told themselves that.
Mm.
So I think it's really important to recognize that whatever we tell ourselves, we really do believe,
Mm.
and we live that out, right? Our words are very powerful. So if we say to ourselves that I would like to calm my thoughts by
Mm.
getting focused on my breath and centered in my body, it takes practice. It's
Mm.
not going to happen instantaneously, but it is something that can work, and it can work with anybody, even those of us that are very busy. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people may find it helpful to dim all the lights, maybe put on some soft music and, some sounds in the background, something that will take their brain away from thinking
Yes.
and focus on the quieting.
Mm.
And other people have used an imagery. So if you close your eyes and you think of like a burning candle in the center of your forehead, as if you're looking at it, so that you're actually forcing your thoughts to
Yeah.
go into a place where it's complete focus.
Mm.
So over time, it does work. I know I never could meditate many years ago because I kept telling myself I can't slow down. It's
Yeah.
not possible.
Mm.
And every single time I tried, I started with that thought. So if you start with the possibility that I would like to relax, center myself, I think it will work.
Okay. Well, you mentioned something else that was really interesting there, which was that possibility of telling yourself something different. And a lot of us might be hearing, now I'm sounding like it's not supposed to sound psychotic, but you'll hear a voice in your head or you'll feel the feeling, and you have been doing that for years. It's become a habit, as it were, or it's become part of your subconscious. And to unpick that can be pretty tricky. So can you tell us, like, how would you go about even discovering that there's that's something holding you back, and then how to unpick it once you've discovered that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we all have voices in our head. Okay. And that doesn't mean we're crazy. Okay.
Hopefully not.
So we have an internal voice, and that internal voice is based on our belief system and where we were raised, where we come from, our culture, our background, and what have you. And also those people that have raised us up. And
Mm,
it's not just our family, right? So what happens is the external voices become the internal voices, what you believe.
mm,
So what we tell ourselves is true based on what we accept
mm,
becomes the inner voice. So when we're in this state of needing to slow down, calm down, or whatever, the internal voice may say things like, oh, it's not possible, like I said before. So
mm.
what do you do with that? So you have to, and this sounds a little crazy, right? But you have to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to inquire and you have to ask yourself this question: what does this mean?
Mm,
And then, is this true? And if it is true, and what does it mean to me? What can I do about it?
mm.
So there's an inquiry. It's not an acceptance.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting and trying to get quiet, all of a sudden I have these thoughts that, oh, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And oh my goodness, my son may come in or my other son may want to go somewhere.
Mm,
So here's the thing. You tell yourself those thoughts are going to come. And when they do, you say no, and you refocus and you reshift.
yeah.
And you say to yourself, okay, is this serving me? So you take a moment and you pay attention,
Mm,
and then you want to refocus. So what do you do to refocus? You have to shift your focus by either, as I said, relaxing your breath,
mm,
have an imagery, but you really have to move away from the thought once you determine that it's not serving the purpose of relaxing.
mm.
So it's a conscious effort.
Okay. Yeah. Um, just shifting gear a little bit. Obviously, we've all been granted this pause time at the moment. What are some of the common things that you're seeing, if you're able to talk about that? Because obviously, you have very first-hand experience at dealing with, people's concerns right now.
Yeah, so it's all across the gamut. I mean, I have patients that have had the COVID-19. I have patients that have lost family members,
Oh wow.
and I myself have friends with the virus, friends that have died as well. So it is a time of great pause for all of us. And I think that when we first started, everybody was in a state of panic with the unknown and the uncertainty. And most of my clients were worried about what was going to happen. But what happened very quickly was that we were able to provide this face-to-face, service. First, it started on the phone because the clinic that I work for and the clients that I have, we were only meeting in an office.
Mm.
And so for the first, I think, 3 weeks or so, it was all on the telephone.
Mm.
And I believe that immediately there was a connection. These are people that I've known, but I've also had new clients that have come to us and had to engage just with the telephone because we did not have this technology available to us at the time.
Yeah.
So what has happened over the course of the last, I guess it's about 6 weeks now, is that for the first 3 to 4 weeks, there was a state of uncertainty and panic in some of my clients. And we actually worked on relaxation and breathing and things of that nature, but also in focusing on the future.
Yeah.
What do you really want and how do you want this to be? And to also take care of yourself.
Mm.
So there's the reality of your immune system, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is a virus, so we want to take care of our immune system and we want to tell ourselves there is something we can do. We can't not, we can't stop it. So we have to do something to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So once we got past that initial phase of fear,
Mm.
which is the false evidence appearing real, right?
Love that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got past that. And then we get to the point where we start to say, okay, what can we do
Mm.
that can help us not feel isolated, not feel that we're at any moment going to get sick? And
Mm.
then we also have to deal with the grief of loss, the
Yeah.
loss of connection, the loss of people's health, the loss of life. So we're now in week 6, and it's been through many phases,
Mm.
but I have clients now that are talking about their day-to-day issues and problems of what brought them into therapy in the first place.
Oh wow.
So
So they've got you
yes,
the new circumstances, shall we
yeah.
say? Yeah.
And I mean, I think that there are 3 big issues. So there's the connection, right? The inability to be connected,
Yeah.
the financial impact of this, and
Yeah.
the long-term ramifications of the health,
Mm.
health concerns.
Mm.
So I think we have to be direct and address them, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So we have a saying in therapy practice is meet the client where they're at,
Hmm.
okay? And so it's also important for the helper, like myself, you, or anybody else that's in a profession in which you're in a service business, because
Yeah.
your business is also service, right?
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah, you do. Very
Yeah.
important. Yeah. You mentioned at the end, there's obviously people going through financial stuff, which we haven't really talked about yet. If that is a place where you're at right now, and hopefully a lot of people will have adjusted to this, but there's all sorts of circumstances. What's some practical things that they can do, from a therapy perspective to help them out?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? Because your mental health is really important as to how you deal with everything in life. And so you first have to sort of allay the anxiety and fear in order to be able to address the financial and the physical and emotional and different parts. So when it comes to financial, I think it's really important to do a checkup of your financial life and health.
Mm.
And I think that this has forced a lot of people who are not really paying attention to take a look at that. So I do believe that we have changed the mindset of our world in that it's interesting in America, we have over 32 million people that have applied for unemployment.
Mm.
And there are some people, based on the stimulus that is being given, that are making more money to not work right now than if they were to work. It's very crazy. The system is very upside down.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
and there is really no incentive for them to go back to a job in which they are potentially putting themselves at risk for a health crisis.
Yeah, it's true.
So financially, I think that a lot of us have had the benefit of having a lot of education around this area, but there are others that have never really taken a look at this until their crisis happens, right?
Right now.
So I think going forward, there needs to be a total understanding of the health of your financial world
Mm.
and the future of where you're going. If you're a single person, that's different than if you're a family person. if you have others to be responsible for. But I do think it's a whole new world, and it doesn't matter where you live, because every government is helping the best that they can, and there are some that are not helping at all. So it's a time to take inventory, if you will, of your practices and your long-term
Mm,
goals and how you reach them.
mm,
And the need for education and
mm,
understanding is bigger now than ever before,
mm.
because I think there's two mindsets. There's the mindset of I'll be taken care of, and
Yeah,
the other mindset is I have to do this for myself,
very
so
interesting. Yeah, I had someone say to me actually, when we first went into our lockdown here, you know, and they announced there'll be some self-employed relief. So Shay, you could relax, just claim that you're not pretty all right financially, um, and just relax for a bit. And part of me just thought, do you know what? I can't really be bothered filling in the forms. I'd rather
right,
I'd rather just make it.
right,
Whether it was the pain of forms, which is the funny thing to say, or that real sense of self-worth, which I think is so important. Because
yeah.
if you are relaxing, as I was told, I think there's a danger also that the self-worth piece can be chipped away at, and that's not healthy necessarily.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree, but I wouldn't imagine you to be someone who would relax, because that's not your personality, right?
not really.
And nor is it mine. I mean, I think that it's interesting. When we had the crisis in New York of 9/11, I immediately volunteered. And it was a compelling feeling that I wanted to be supportive in any way that I could be.
Mm,
For COVID, it's different. It's different because if I volunteer, which I am actually doing some of that,
mm,
that I put myself at risk and my family.
yeah.
So I'm a single parent of two sons, as you know, and I thought about it and I said, you know what? Physically putting myself in harm's way by going to provide mental health services is not a smart thing for me to do. However, if I could provide these services by telephone or FaceTime or something like that, I'd be happy to do it, and I'd do it for free, no problem. And actually, in New York State, the governor actually created a task force, if you will, of volunteers from the mental health profession. And there are over 6,000 people that are participating.
Mm,
So I've always had a need to give back,
mm,
and so have you, I know from what I know of you. And so, yeah, I could have taken some time and just, stopped what I was doing, but it wouldn't make me feel good.
yeah.
It would have made me feel like I gave in to something, this mass hysteria, this fear that I don't really give into.
Mm,
And I wouldn't feel like my self-esteem, my self-worth, like I know I have a gift, I have a talent, and I can help people. Why would I want to hold that back? That's selfish, really, I think.
yeah. And that's a great belief to take on if you are in that place where you're wondering what to do, having that think about what can I offer, and who am I not to offer that if you've got that gift. It's a wonderful thing. And how are things looking in New York at the moment? Is it all
So,
calming
it's
down?
interesting because there's a lot of propaganda, right? There's a lot
Yeah,
of stuff
well,
on the
there
news.
are someone on the ground. I think.
Yeah, so I'm running, and I try to get out at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I did last week run in Central Park, which is quite a big area.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it was a beautiful day out in Central Park, and there were a lot of people out, and there were a lot of people that were not necessarily adhering to the guidelines that were put out. However, I will honestly say there are a lot more people that were. So even in a place that is so huge, and there is proximity at times, but people are wearing some form of face covering, which is great. And there are gatherings, but they are 10 or less. So I'm not seeing these. I know there's a lot of reports about breaking up parties and things like this, but overall, I do believe that the city, because I'm in Manhattan, I'm in the actual city of New York, is really doing a good job. All the buses are only running for essential workers. So there are very few people on the bus. During this time, I've had to go out because I'm taking care of a friend who has not been able to get the proper care that she's needed. And so I've been going to the store and, taking care of her physical needs in her home. And so I've seen firsthand the adherence or non-adherence, if you will. But I
Yeah.
will say that it's been pretty decent. And I live very close to Mayor de Blasio's home.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of activity in this area. I will say that in this area where I live, we have not had a shortage of toilet paper, food, none of that has happened.
Good to know.
And there is also delivery services. So we're very blessed in
Mm.
that we do have the ability to receive all the things that we need. And I think there's great adherence. People are dying. Yes, that's true. And that is very sad.
Yeah.
However, every year people die of the flu virus.
True.
Every year people die of heart disease, cancer related illness, all types of things. There
Mm.
is some belief that some of the people that are dying are not dying from COVID, but they're being classified as COVID. I don't know
Yeah. I've
because
seen.
I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I'm not in the hospitals, but there have been some circulating videos, if you will, from people that have come to New York to lend a hand.
Mm.
And there are some alarming things that are coming out of that. So we will only know in hindsight, I
Mm.
think.
Time
But
will
on a
tell.
day-to-day, yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I'm seeing New Yorkers really step up, and I'm very happy and very grateful to see that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing to hear. And I know you've been doing lots of beautiful work taking care of people's mental health right now. Do you have any success stories that you can share with us of or magical moments?
Oh yeah, there's always beautiful success stories. I mean, I have clients that started out in a state of panic
Mm.
and anxiety, and with the tools and skills that we can work together with, they have been able to deal with. I have one particular patient who works for a dentist, and during this initial phase, she was furloughed and there were no services. And
Mm.
about 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. Yeah, maybe it was about 2 weeks ago. And she actually could not get unemployment because she didn't have enough quarters in. You have to work a certain number of quarters in
Right.
order to actually be eligible.
Wow.
So she had no income. She lives alone. She has two dogs, so that's not alone totally, but
Yeah.
she does have four adult children. But what happened was about 2 weeks ago, the dentist was given the go ahead to actually bring in some of the staff to do emergency work only because there's always people that need some work. And so she started to go back to work um, very afraid actually,
Mm.
because she has some medical conditions that put her in what you call a compromised possible category.
Mm.
And the first week, she was very scared, but she would go in and she was very careful. And, she wore a mask, she would clean the counters and, do all the things that you're told to do. And 2 weeks later, they're now up to a full schedule.
Wow.
And she also is having weekly therapy. She does have anti-anxiety medication because she was really having a rough time.
Mm.
And what she's reporting now is that she is not taking the medication as frequently. She
Lovely.
is using the meditation and the skill and the tools that we talked about. She's questioning her thoughts that say, am I safe? Am I not safe? Do I need to move? Am I far enough apart? And she's easing into it's sort of become a habit now where she goes in, she washes her hands, she puts on her gloves, she has her mask. When she goes off her shift, she washes her hands, she does all the things, but she does her regular ritual of centering herself
Mm.
and telling herself she's there for a purpose, and she's less anxious and she's actually feeling great. So instead of talking once a week, we're now talking once every other week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think, that's wonderful for people to hear. And, taking on a simple practice like breathing into your heart, like doing your meditation, like centering yourself and asking yourself the right questions, you can really let go of some of these, anxious pieces that you might have. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing by, putting out information and allowing people to share what they're doing in the world. And I know that where you are, you're also dealing with some of the similar things. You're in a big city, right?
Yeah, indeed, I know.
So, yeah, how are you finding it on your side of the continent?
Well, I think initially people were quite respectful. Central London was a bit of a ghost town. I don't live in central London, but one of my friends does. So I was getting photos of, I'd never seen central London look like that, like literally no one. And
It's
I'm
like
like,
Times Square, it's empty. Yeah.
yeah. And I think right now, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it looks like it's fraying around the edges a little bit. So one of my friends went to Hyde Park this morning, which is, one of our biggest, I think it is
Yes.
actually one of our biggest parks. Second,
Hmm.
never mind. But she was saying, so we're not allowed to meet up in groups. We're allowed to go out for exercise, but
Okay.
we're
By
not,
yourself. Yeah.
or with someone in your house. You
Okay.
to meet up with your friends, which I think people are finding really tough. And
Yeah, that's hard.
I mean, that's hard, especially if you've missing family, missing friends, whatever. So, as she sent me some pictures from Hyde Park this morning, she said there were lots of people. I've seen them. I mean, not as busy as it would be if it were legal to
Hmm.
go sunbathing. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I think people are probably
I
feeling it.
think they're fatigued from all the restrictions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's nice
So for
weather
sure.
outside. So yeah, I'm not saying that you should go out because we're not allowed to right now,
Right.
for essential reasons. But there's some people still are, or some people have had enough.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's only been 6 weeks, but it feels like 6 years to some people, really. I mean, I'm out all the time. I know you are as well. So, being stuck, and our Tony Robbins world where we're going to events and we're actually hugging people all the time. I really miss that. I miss that, virtual hugs don't really cut it, but I'm very fortunate that I have my two sons, so we can still hug each other, which is nice.
Yeah,
And I was thinking about Mother's Day, coming up for those of us that have our mothers. My mother is not here anymore, but for those of us that have the ability to connect, this is going to be very interesting.
yeah,
How people celebrate. I mean, I've gone through a couple of holidays over the last couple of weeks, and we did a virtual Zoom, connection, and I actually had a visit with a family member at a distance with masks, so I think that it's going to be very hard to keep people from wanting to connect.
yeah,
And as long as we're taking care of our immune system and we're doing what we do normally, I
yeah,
think over time we're going to find that we have a new normal, right? So
yeah,
we have a higher level of vigilance, if you will, of our health,
yeah,
which is going to be the key. And I do hope that we can do this as a unified world, not
mm,
as a partisan, if you will. We get a lot of that here.
yeah,
But yeah, but I think that we're moving in the right direction with opening up our economies. I mean, I don't see how it's sustainable, and also we really need to give people back their freedom. You know, I think that's the biggest piece, but
yeah,
with education, that's the one that that I will say. So the final thought that I have is really, be careful what your thoughts are, and be careful who you listen to.
yes. I think there's a lot of information out there, so we have to be discerning, obviously. Thank you
Yes.
so much for your time today. It's been such a joy to speak to you again and connect with you again. Do you have any, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's carlajrose.com, and they can find me on Facebook as well. But I have a website, and I do offer consultation. if anyone is interested in services. And I work virtually. I've been working virtually for years. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I would love to reach out if anybody has any questions about the relaxation breathing or meditation, or just overall general mental health, consultations at no cost.
Oh,
And then if people are interested in going further, I can give them resources, or if they want to talk to me, about that as well.
oh, thank you so much. And we'll put those details on
Okay.
our site too, facebook.com/inspired stage. We'll have it all up there for you. Thank you very much. Obviously, stay safe, look after your beautiful sons, and
Thank you.
we'll see you soon.
I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah.